had this a very big professional project to finish, which took me all the time and all the energy. So I took a week off after, and now I'm back. Well, happy Easter. We're in France and we celebrate Easter, and Monday, today, is a day off. So I'm back home before I won't call it a lockdown starts, because you actually can go out during the day between 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. and you can go wherever you want to go, except that you cannot go further than 10 kilometers. And if you need to go further, you need to fill out a form. And but other than that, my life doesn't really change. Stores are actually closing, but the stores that are selling essentials, what we call essential products, are still open. And the good thing is that now bookstores are essentials, so they remain open. And just for me, I mean, that's enough. If bookstores are open, I'm happy. So this is it. I wanted to talk to you about the books I've read in March. So I have actually read 12 books in March. So despite the fact that I was very busy with my project, I was able to read a lot, especially during my week off. So that's why I end up with 12 books. I won't talk about the 12 books because there are books that I've read that which don't really, to me, deserve to be actually discussed here today. Most of them are thrillers, crime novels, but not the best ones, so I won't mention them. I wanted to talk to you about a few books that I really enjoyed, so I'm going to start now. So the first one that I've read actually yesterday and was okay, now just before starting, my video is not filming the right way for the books, but actually I'm not happy when I can't see myself while I'm shooting a video. That's why actually I'd rather film this way, and I will show you the books actually right there on the screen so that you can see the cover. But that's a book by George Saunders. It's a collection of short stories, Pastoralia. So just a quick site, even if it's on the other way. I have actually read Lincoln in the Bardo a couple of years ago now by George Saunders. I didn't know the author, and I really enjoyed that book a lot. It was just, it was totally out of the ordinary. It's an experience. Reading Lincoln in the Bardo is really an experience that you have to, to be open to actually go through. It's a strange story, and I think Saunders is a strange man, but in the good way. And his short stories are actually the same. So I will say about these stories that I think there are 6 of them. The first one, which is named actually Pastoralia, is the longest one. It's about 65 pages, I think. And it's not my favorite. So though it's the longest one and probably one of the most famous ones, at first I was a little bit confused. Then I do understand why he's doing what he does, and how he enjoys mocking the society and our rules and our and the hypocrisy and everything. I get it, but I was missing something in the first one, and I was a little bit worried about the rest of them. But then the next one was really good, and the next one was even better. So I had a good time. I don't think you can resume George Saunders' short stories, because he's always showing the absurd and miserability of the characters and their stupidness and everything. So it's hard to explain or tell a story to say it's about this man. And no, it's really weird at first, and you have to actually let your mind open and just enjoy it. And it's pretty funny at point. Not the first one for me. I'm sorry, I didn't really enjoy the humor in Pastoralia, but the next ones were really funny, even if it's a dark sense of humor. He's a very peculiar man, I think, and but I'm happy I've read them. So yeah, Pastoralia. If you like short stories and you want to be surprised, then read George Saunders. The other one I read was, it's called in French, because I've got the French edition. It's called Nature morte avec chien et chat, by Binnnie Kirshenbaum. And in English, it's called Rabbits for Food. It's about this story about this woman. Her name is Bunny. She's, I think, 37 or 38 years old, and she's married, and she's severely depressed. So she's going through a very big depression, and so she just stays at home in her pajamas all day long, drinking and being desperate. And so it's very heavy for her husband. He tries to do everything he can to help her, but nothing works. No, she's really good at actually getting medication just to be numb all day long. So her only friend is her cat. But New Year's Eve is coming up, and they live in New York City, and she wants to go out, with their, the friends. They celebrate New Year's Eve every year, even though she thinks they're all stupid and just, not really sincere and just playing off and showing off, but she still wants to go, and her husband is very actually surprised by her decision, but they still go. And then something happens, and she ends up in a psychiatric unit. She's hospitalized, and it's in 2008, actually. It happens there. And so she tells a story about her, about the unit she's in, and what happens to her, the shrink she sees, and the medicine they want her to take, and then the people she's in the unit with, and the other ones, and it's, I have a special interest for mental disease. I know I don't have any, but I've always been interested by what our brain does to us, can do to us. And of course, the psychiatric units are, and the way that we have been treating, mental disease, mental illness for years, does interest me a lot. So I wanted to read that book. I don't think I've learned anything about, mental illness in this book. She's just severely depressed. And actually, she's a writer. But then once she's hospitalized, they want her to go to workshops during the day, and she doesn't want to do any workshops, but she has to. And she's actually she starts a writing workshop, which is really kind of ironic because she's a writer, but still. And within the book, she actually writes the essays she has to write for that workshop. And within the essays, we learn a little bit more about her and what has actually provoked this depression. Where does it come from? Where it comes from? So it's really well written. It's my friend read it and hated the character. Okay, she hated her. I didn't. Of course, she's really because she's severely depressed, and because she cannot stand at this their friends. Okay, the way they act, the way they showing off at the restaurant, and the talking about really stupid things and everything. So she cannot stand small talk anymore. So she's not, of course, someone you are going to like because of that. But I ended up liking her a lot, and I like the way she talks about the people that she's hospitalized with. She's actually a nice human person to me. But my friend hated her, so maybe you won't have the same, experience of reading this book as I did. But if you want, you can read it. So it's called Rabbits for Food in English, and it's Nature morte avec chien et chat in French, which is translated by Catherine Richard-Mas. And it was a good translation because, I read in English, and sometimes translations are not that good. Another book, it's by Wright Morris, Chant des Plaines, so that's a French edition. In English, the book is an old book actually. It's called Plains, Song for Female Voices. It was written in 1980, so it's like 41 years old, and it wasn't ever translated into French, and it won the National Book Award in the US, so he actually won the prize twice. So his name is Wright Morris, and the story takes place in Nebraska in a farm, and it starts at the beginning of the 20th century and goes up, I think, until 1980, I think, 80 or 81. And it's about this family, and especially this woman, and Cora, who actually marries a young farmer, and they have a daughter, Madge, and the niece, Sharon Rose, their niece, that they're gonna raise like sisters. And it's about their stories, about these women. This book, actually in English, when you know the title, Female Voices, it's definitely a book about female voices. And to me, it was actually quite impressive that Wright Morris talked about women, because at that time, you know, we talked about the hardship, the work of the farmers. It was rough, okay? The Nebraska lands were not really, you know, easy lands to work on, and the drought and the storms and everything. I mean, you know, you could lose everything. We hardly talk about women, and in this book it's about women, and it's a great book. I really enjoyed Cora's voices. She has this strong, you know, she's a strong build. She's like 6 foot at that time. It's not very common. You know, broad shoulders. She's not really pretty, but she's a tough, hard worker, and she's gonna, you know, make sure that everything goes on in the farm, that there's food on the, you know, table, that the kids are actually taken care of. She's gonna start raising hens and having her own garden. I mean, she's just incredible, and her daughters are also amazing, and it's a great book. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you can find it, I'm sure you can find it in the US, but maybe old editions too, but it's definitely someone I want to read again. I think he's written a few other books. I don't know how many, maybe even more, maybe like 40 books, I don't know. But yes, I really enjoyed that book. The next one is the one that I was expected last time I talked to you. You know, I had heard of it, and then it got lost somewhere in the mail, and I thought I would never ever received it, and finally it came. So I actually read it like the next day it came. I read it, I couldn't wait anymore, and so I'm going to show you, even though it's The Removed by Brendan Hobson. So it was actually selected for the National Book Award. He was one of the finalists. Brendan Hobson wrote last year another book that I really loved, and of course I need to find Where the Dead Sit Talking. I have right here in my library, and I enjoyed his work, okay, very, very much. He's just amazing. He belongs to the Cherokee Nation tribe of Oklahoma, so his characters are always from the same tribe, Cherokee. And in this book you follow the story of about 3 people: a woman, the mother, her daughter, her son, and the phantoms, the ghosts removed. I really love that book, okay? To me, it touched me a lot. It's about grief. It's about people who are, you know, taken away from us. It's about how do you do when you lose a child, and what I liked about this book is that usually you always talk about the parents, you know, they lose a child. It's terrible for them, and they don't ever get over, you know, the loss. But in that book, he does mention the sister and the brother, and to me it meant a lot, because when you lose a brother or a sister, it's also very destructive, and it's not mentioned that much in books. It's always about the parents, and the story takes place where 15 years after the death of their 15-year-old son, they have this tradition to actually I'm not sure how you do say it in English, but do a bonfire, start a bonfire, you know, on his anniversary, and the family comes together. But their youngest son actually has left Oklahoma to move to New Mexico, and he's a drug addict. And they have tried to help him in the past, but nothing worked. And they don't know if he's going to come back to, you know, that special day. And at the same time, you have the daughter. She's, I think she was older than her brother, the brother who died. And she has had her hard time too. And now she's seeing that man, but that man has something to do with her brother's death. So it's a strange relationship. And you have the mother, of course. And the mother used to be a social worker for years. And now that she's retired, they have asked her actually to watch for a little boy, for a 12-year-old boy, for a few days until his grandparents are granted the custody. And when she brings the boy home, when she brings him home, the father, and even she doesn't, but she recognizes it, but the father sees his own son, you know, the son who passed away, in that little boy. And it's very, very touchy story. It's not sentimental, you know, I didn't cry like the whole book. It's not like, you know, it's always well written. It's and in the back you always have the removed, and the removed are all the people that actually been removed from life, like their brother Rere, but also the people that the Cherokee tribes who were actually you know, living in Tennessee until the white man decided that, you know, they couldn't stay there because they were moving there. So they you know, the story about the Trail of Tears, and they had them walked during winter for, you know, miles and miles, and many of them died until Oklahoma. So it's about the remove, you know, they were removed from their territory, Tennessee, and taken somewhere else. So it's a very strong, you know, a spiritual story too. I really enjoy Brandon Hobson's writing. I really love everything he does. So if you can read it, please do, please do. And then I read something a lot lighter and funnier, because you know, you need sometimes just to have fun. And I wanted to read Bernardine Evaristo again. So she wrote Girl, Woman, Other last year, you know, was a very famous book. I really enjoyed it. I read it, I think, within 2 days. It was in 2 sittings. I read it. And I wanted to read something else because she was very funny and sarcastic, and she knew exactly how to describe a marriage and the relationship, especially about people who have been married for so many years and everything. And in this book, Mr. Loverman, you follow actually Barrington Jedediah Walker, Barry to his actually friends, Trouble to his wife. He's 74 years old. He was born in Antigua in the, you know, British Caribbeans, and he has this flamboyant personality, and you know, and he's always, you know, going places with his soulmate Morris, his best friend, and his wife Carmel is sure that, you know, Barry hasn't been faithful. She knows he's been cheating on her, but she's tried for years to, you know, catch him, but she's never caught him with any other woman, and she's troubled by that. And suddenly her father passes away, and he was in Antigua. So she flies away, but she tells Barry that when she comes back, she's gonna be a lot, you know, harsher on him and strict, and he won't be able to go out at night like he does with his friend, and, you know, partying and coming back drunk in the morning. That's it. That's, you know, she's going to stop it. So Barry is like, I can't stand that. They've been married for over 50 years, and he's like, this is it. And it's so funny. I mean, you have to read that book. There's this huge secret that Barry has been hiding to his wife for any children and grandchildren for the past 60 years. And I love that man. I mean, that man made me laugh so much. He's the narrator. And it's so, I mean, I love the way he sees the world, he sees a relationship, marriage, friendship, the way he even describes the racism he had to go through, but the fact that he's led the life that he also always wanted to live. And it's a very, hilarious, poignant, clever, controversial, and courageous book. I really enjoyed it a lot. I was really in a good company with him. I wanted to be with Bernardine a lot longer. So if she wants to write, a sequel, she can, because Barry is just a lovable man. And if you want to, I mean, you see, I tagged the book, and it's the first time that actually I've put special tabs for humor in sentences that made me laugh out loud. And I love the way who'd have thought she would grow into this giant over-the-top octopus, flinging her limbs all over the place. Okay, that's it. If you want to have fun, it's clever. Okay. Bodicha, née Margaret, is common law wife of 45 years, still wears what look like 14th century Mongolian steppe dresses. Peaceman that his kids was free spirits who would change the world, seeing a new era of what? Eating birdseed? They became, respectively, a tax inspector, an accountant, a solicitor, and a policeman. So, yeah, it's so funny. I love the way he sees the world. And yes, Mr. Loverman, you have to read that one. And two last books I want to mention, and this is the first time I record without stopping the recording. So this book is actually an Australian book, and with the winner of the 2020 Miles Franklin Award. I think it's a very big award in Australia. It's called The Yield, and it's written by Tara June Winch. And a funny story, Tara June Winch actually has married a Frenchman and lives not so far away from where I live in France. But she has written a beautiful, beautiful book. The Yield is about actually a family story. You follow August. August is a young woman. I think she's in her 20s, late 20s. She has moved to England like 10 years ago when she learns that her grandfather, has died, and she has to come home. And her grandfather was, so can't remember his name. I know his last name is Gondi Windy. He's an Aborigine, man, and he grew up in the Massacre Plains in his property called Prosperous House, and they have raised, the kids and grandkids for decades. But when she comes back for the funeral, she learns that actually their place, this Prosperous House, is going to be repossessed and destroyed by a mining company. And August doesn't want it to be destroyed, and so she's gonna try to save her home and stop the destruction. And the only way she can do that is that she can prove that there is this cultural aspect to this land that needs to be saved. And then she learns that her grandfather was writing. She didn't know if it was a book or a memoir, but he was writing the last years of his life, and she wants to find the book or the papers, but they're missing. So it's about her, searching for the book, and where he was actually writing all the Wiradjuri words. Wiradjuri is his language, and the language that he was actually speaking, but that is. People don't speak it anymore. And he tells a story about how it was before when he was a baby, and the cultural aspect of his life, and how they lived in the river that was the Murumi River, which is like something that you follow all through the book, and where actually at that time the river was a normal river. This is my cat. And no, it's okay, my cat is here. Sorry. And no, it's dry. Okay, so And the third voice, because these are the two voices, is granddaughter, the grandfather. And the third voice is about this reverend who came and who started actually Prosperous House. He was one of the, these churchmen that were sent to the outback and to Christianize the savages, the Aborigines. So it's special because he wrote, he kept a journal that, you read about how he started Prosperous House and how he started, to take the kids and teach them about the Bible and Jesus and everything. But that at the end, the white man saw an opportunity just to, take these people for free and turn them into, the term is not used, but slave, because they work for free. So it's a very interesting story line that you follow the same, story told by the grandfather and the reverend at the same time. So you know what really happened. And the granddaughter, who's actually has another secret, another story to, to unfold. So it's a very strong book. It's a beautiful book, beautifully written. It's really a great book. If you want to learn more about Australia, you should definitely read it. It was translated into French. I think it was translated La Récolte. I'm not sure of the title, but I think it was. And it's a beautiful book. So yes, Tara June Winch, The Yield. And finally, the last book. This is a French edition, but it was published in English and with the same title, not spelled the same way, the Phantoms, by Christian Kiefer. So I met Christian Kiefer in Vincennes, close to Paris, at a writing festival a few years ago, and he was just the funniest man ever. He was really nice enough to draw me a nice drawing, and I had read his previous book, and really enjoyed it. So I bought one of his other books, and I never read it, but I still have it. And I will read it now. But I got his last book published in French, and it's a beautiful book, actually. I knew that Christian Kiefer lived in California, but I didn't know that it was actually in a place where the Japanese had immigrated and, were working in the fields and the orchards. They were, I think, plum trees, peach trees. And most of the workers were actually Japanese, and that created this little city, and they had a life. Okay, so you follow these farmers, and the farmer becomes very close to a Japanese man, and they become really friends, and the kids grow together until, of course, until the Second World War, and the day Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. And everything changes. Of course, the story. And all the Japanese have to move and have to, leave their homes and are moved to camps, internment camps for, during the war, until the war is over. And they're free, but they're not free anymore because they can't go back to where they lived and had a life. And you follow the story of a family, and through the eyes of one of the grandchildren, not really grandchildren, grandnephew, yes. And he is, he has moved in with, I think it's his grand aunt, and he works in a gas station, and one day he meets one of his aunts, and he hasn't seen her in years, and she's gonna ask him a favor, and that favor is to take her to see that old Japanese woman who lives somewhere else, and to drive her to see her. And he doesn't know the story about his family and about his aunt and this Japanese family, and so he's gonna find out about them and what happened, 50 years ago. And it's a beautiful story too. It teaches you a lot about the story. Not only, it doesn't focus on the camp, okay? I've read books about, the camps, the way they lived, and there is a couple of graphic books, really good ones, graphic novels about the camps they were interned, but it's about the story before and after, how the Japanese people were perceived after, before the war, during the war, and even after. You know, because we fought Japan, so how do we feel about Japanese people working in our land, on our land? And it's a very good book. It's well written. It's yes, I haven't much to say because I really enjoyed it. And yes, I definitely want to read it. You know, his previous book that I have somewhere. So Christian Kiefer, Phantoms. I will put you the US cover because I have no idea what it looks like. That's the French cover. That's it. It's a 30-minute video. That's it. I'm done. I'm done talking. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you again soon because I want to talk to you about the book haul I have made. And I also want to make my tag that Claire Reads has created and that I really enjoyed watching, and I want to do it too. It's about the book, the physical books we really like and want to keep in our library. So yes, I want to do that. Okay, bye bye.